Hello, and welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you are watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I've got some news coming out from Russia. So, we've got a story talking about the Russian deputy foreign minister. His name is Sergei Ryabkov, warning that the U.S. could face fatal consequences over this war in Ukraine. Now, we're going to dive deeper into why he's talking about this, but I kind of discussed this a little bit this morning in the video talking about Ukraine targeting Russian territory with U.S. supplied HIMARS rockets just yesterday and also on Friday. And we talked a little bit about him because he made some comments here stating that the U.S. could be facing fatal consequences regarding this whole topic. Now, again, this is something I know we've been discussing a lot about, but it's definitely the highlight of the Ukraine war right now. And there's lots of worry that Russia could be responding very aggressively to these attacks inside of Russian territory because Vladimir Putin's come out many times and said that NATO countries are playing with fire here and they should not be targeting inside of their territory with their weapons. And this was a red line for Russia for a very long time. And now that red line has been crossed in multiple areas, okay? So let's talk about this some more here. I've got an article we're going to be discussing on why he's saying that the U.S. could be facing fatal consequences. So let's talk about this. This is on Reuters. Russia warns U.S. against fatal miscalculation in Ukraine. This just coming out today. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said on Monday that the United States could face fatal consequences if it ignored Moscow's warnings not to let Ukraine use weapons provided by Washington to strike targets inside Russia. So that's primarily why he's warning about this. That right now, the United States and NATO countries are completely ignoring the fact that Russia's saying, do not strike in our territory or we may respond even with nuclear weapons, okay? And I'm not joking about that. If you weren't aware of that, yes, Russia is saying that they could use nuclear weapons and start targeting other countries, even NATO countries, if they start coming under attack on their territory. And this has already happened, okay, twice in the last 3 days, ever since Joe Biden gave the approval for Ukraine to start targeting inside Russian territory on Thursday. So literally, it's only been 3 or 4 days now. So Ryabkov was commenting on President Joe Biden's decision last week to approve the use of U.S. supplied weapons to hit targets inside Russia that were involved in attacks on Ukraine's Kharkiv region. I would like to warn American leaders against miscalculations that could have fatal consequences. For unknown reasons, they underestimate the seriousness of the rebuff they may receive. State news agency RIA quoted Ryabkov saying, "Wow, that's absolutely huge." Let me read that again. I would like to warn American leaders against miscalculations that could have fatal consequences. For unknown reasons, they underestimate the seriousness of the rebuff they may receive. So, what is he saying here? That he wants to warn the West, stating that don't think about striking our territory or there could be fatal consequences, major consequences. And it says for unknown reasons, they underestimate the seriousness of the rebuff they may receive. So, basically saying that the West is obviously not worried about the serious response we may be seeing from Russia. And clearly we see that because the West is just so quickly and willing all of a sudden to start striking Russian territory. He referred to comments last week by President Vladimir Putin, who said NATO countries were playing with fire and risking a deeper global conflict, one of a series of warnings from Moscow about the risk of serious escalation. Okay? So it says here, I urge these figures in the US to spend some of their time, which they apparently spend on some kind of video games, judging by the lightness of their approach, on studying what was said in detail by Putin, Ryabkov said. Absolutely huge statement, too. Putin had delivered a very significant warning, and it must be taken with the utmost seriousness, he added. Putin said the West would be directly involved in any use of its weapons by Ukraine to strike deep inside Russia, because such attacks would require its satellite intelligence and military help. So that's something we talked a lot about. Yes, Vladimir Putin did come out and say that if any strikes were happening inside of Russian territory, this would require the intelligence and help from the U.S. and its partners, the NATO members, giving intelligence to Ukraine to strike targets inside Russian territory, that it's not that easy for them to do that, apparently, without the help of the West. So that would mean that the West would be 100% involved in these attacks, and it would be their fault for the strikes in their territory. And obviously, that's a big problem because, for the longest time, this has been Ukraine fighting Russia, but now Russia's going to see this as NATO fighting Russia, which they've already come out many times, and I understand that too. They've come out many times and said that the U.S. was, completely involved in this war, and there's been lots of warnings about that as well. So we're very close to some major escalation here. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said last week that NATO had the right to help Ukraine uphold its own right to self-defense, excuse me, and this did not make NATO a party to the conflict. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said at the weekend that Kiev was grateful to Washington for allowing it to use U.S.-supplied HIMARS rocket systems in the Kharkiv region, but this was not enough. Ukraine has long argued that restrictions on the way it can use Western-supplied weapons are seriously limiting its ability to defend itself. So, we'll have to see if they start using ATACMS too, because the ATACMS could go a lot further than the HIMARS, but I think they're going to slowly work their way up. They'll start with these HIMARS systems, and maybe they'll start moving to the ATACMS, and then, the ATACMS that can go like 200 kilometers inside of Russia. That's when we'll start seeing deeper strikes if it ends up going that far. Russian news agencies quoted Ryabkov as saying that attempts by Kiev to attack Russian early warning radar systems would be thwarted, and Moscow may respond asymmetrically to such steps. A Kiev intelligence source said last week that a Ukrainian drone had targeted a long-range radar deep inside Russia that is part of Russia's early warning system to detect whether it is under nuclear attack. I did hear about that a nuclear radar was hit deep inside of Russian territory, and yeah, it was used by a long-range drone that targeted this, and this was another red line as well, and that's why I was mentioning earlier that there's several red lines that have been crossed here, okay, not just one. There's already been 2 attacks since Friday inside of the Belgorod region, and I've reported on both of those, and we also had this radar, the early warning system that came under attack as well, and this is for their nuclear system, so I don't know, guys. Definitely, it's got to be scary. Okay, it's definitely a scary thing what's happening here, but for the most part, we're not really seeing any major response from Russia as of yet. But something that I mentioned just as in one of my last videos was maybe we'll randomly see Russia just react. Okay, maybe a lot of people will just sit back and think, nah, they're not going to do anything. They'll never do anything, and that could be the case. You could be 100% right on that. Maybe they won't do anything. But at the same time, it raises the question is what if they actually do react, okay? And what if they just react out of nowhere when no one is expecting it in the middle of the night or something like that, and Russia's like, that's it, we've had enough, and it's war now. It's whatever they want to call it. And I just did a video earlier, just today, about some Russian state TV broadcasters stating that they could just nuke Poland, send 30 or 40 tactical nukes over to Poland and completely obliterate the country, and then there'd be no response from NATO, and that could be their message to send to NATO and said, hey, we're not messing around here. And I don't know, maybe there wouldn't be any kind of response from the West is kind of what they're saying. But yeah, let me know what you think down below. This is definitely very dangerous grounds we're on here, but who knows, maybe Russia will never respond to these attacks. But we're getting lots and lots of warnings coming out consistently, especially more right now than we ever have before, on the U.S. supplied weapons striking inside of Russian territory. Okay, and remember, these are U.S. weapons, not Ukrainian missiles or drones or anything like that. These come from the U.S. directly, and we got NATO partners as well telling Ukraine that they can start striking inside of Russian territory as well. So that's going to be it for this update. Let me know what you think about this down below. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. And also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, I hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.